Hi, this is Arun from arunsyoga.in. I'm a software engineer who mostly work with Node.js, PHP, and other backend technologies. And I'm an open source contributor as well. I'm a tantric by birth in a family which is passing tantric wisdom from generations to generations from past 2000 years of legacy, and got lucky to travel across India and got chances to study under various gurus from different backgrounds and disciplines. You could connect with me in arunsyoga.in. Here I'm helping you to design a divine lifestyle which is based on Vedic astrology, tantra, and other yogic system of understanding. Hi, today's podcast I'm joining again with Ben from tantrapunk.com. This particular podcast, we are discussing about decentralized internet with decentralized economy and the coming project OpenPinner with mycryptoworks.com. Welcome to the podcast, Decentralized Internet with a Decentralized Economy. So basically, what to say that I see the thing is what I'm trying to build is the IPFS node where it could be get incentivized for the creators or the people who are hosting this IPFS node in such a way that whoever is hosting their particular content into that particular node in basically, the Filecoin is trying to give that incentivize that proof of space with some kind of Filecoin kind of thing. So here, what I'm trying to do is where I'm actually seeing where Cardano's smart contract, which is having very good secure, and the Charles Hoskinson. Basically, I would like to say that these two peoples are into a war, this Charles Hoskinson and the Vitalik is actually basically into a war. Like this guy is built one smart contract. Blockchain, which actually people can host stuff into that, and it will actually give some using the Ethereum, people can actually keep that data into that Ethereum blockchain. And however, somehow the Charles Hoskinson and the Vitalik got into trouble, and he went ahead and trying to build something which is which is going to make the Ethereum blockchain obsolete. However, whatever he's trying to build on the top of the Ethereum blockchain probably could have been actually, could be actually solved by IPFS. As we can already know that, it is easy to host stuff into IPFS node, and but basically they are lacking some kind of incentivizing system which is actually needed for any kind of business to sustain in a long term. In that sense, I'm trying to I can see there is a gap which is actually people who is willing to host this IPFS node into their own infrastructure, whether it could be a Raspberry Pi or it could be a robust computer or whatever. But there is, if they want to scale that particular thing which is happening in their side, they need
need some kind of incentivization system to sustain this particular model of business. So I'm trying to put a kind of a mining thing which could actually mine the user, or they will be paying the usage of the internet in using some kind of smart contract or something like that, and whoever is the stakeholders on this particular network will be get get a stake of, or get a share of what is happening on this particular blockchain. So this is something which I'm trying to build with the this particular product which I'm trying to build, and it is basically like there will be a front end which is actually like a Node.js API with which is communicating with the React.js front end, and that thing which is actually helping to host the code into IPFS node, and the search which is been associated with this particular stuff, and basically serving the file to people whoever is on this particular network, and whoever want to watch this or whoever want to see the content which is actually uncensored, and which is actually supporting the distributed economy. I would like to say it's a distributed economy with a distributed internet. That is something which I'm trying to see, or trying to do actually, like in the security aspect, there is something which is like there is a very good stuff is existing in the IOHK Foundation's blockchain, and so that is also, I have gone through a bit of Haskell programming. I was actually not familiar with the Haskell programming and writing the blockchains by my own thing. I mean, Haskell programming is very new to me, and whereas the Solidity, which actually looks like the bit of JavaScript. So it's Solidity comes very easily to handy to me. Like I could actually build the stuff on that, and so right now what I have implemented there, people can actually put their stuff into one IPFS node, and this node, and important thing is like in IPFS system, all the servers don't need to be available in 24/7. That is one of the to deliver the file into 24/7. So the uptime anyway going to be 24/7, even though the machines are not up 24/7. So somehow the mainnet is always up and living. So this is something which I can see in IPFS node, and if there is an incentivization system which will actually help people who are hosting this particular server or the particular node into their own infrastructure, so that could be something really great. So this is something I'm trying to build. So yeah. So how do you see about this? What is that?
Well, I'm in love with everything that you said, and I followed everything you said. And so if the intention of this recording that we're doing is that my intention would be, actually we should share intentions first. How about I think that was a great introduction, and I'm pleased to be a friend of yours, and to some degree a peer, although I'm far less skilled with programming languages. I do feel like I have quite a bit of experience in what you could call tech startups, where there's a lot of different people with a lot of different skills that make a tech startup successful, and everybody plays a different role. So So in this case, you're more of a skilled developer and coder and like full stack developer. And for me, for anyone listening, I would consider myself a web designer, meaning the designer of a home or designer of a garden, they may not do all of the technical work. They may just subcontract or partner with, or refer out, or what. There's various ways that a designer would understanding the component pieces help, let's say, a client, solve a problem, let's say, for what we're talking about, distributed incentivized file storage, resilient. I'm going to call it data resilience, for my own purposes. But we're have different skills. We have different passions, different backgrounds with different tools, and but we see a need to solve a problem, and we see a potential to create value and revenue and create sustainable, profitable, ongoing protocols, and then to do that open source and leverage the value of all of the malicious hackers in the world, the net benefit of them attacking your system constantly so that you can see what you did wrong in real time and patch it quick. And so, open source invites all kinds of attacks, and it's a net benefit to be building that immune system based on those attacks. And it's also a net benefit to have the white hat hackers and the benevolent contributors to code and code development for them to do pull requests and bug fixes and even bug bounties. And there can be an ecosystem around creating a healthy, living, ongoing, evolving software project. So I just put that background out there because whoever does listen to this, if this is not something that they're passionate about already, I think it's important to learn about it and to become passionate about it, because if you don't become passionate about what Arun's talking about, what I'm talking about, then you're basically at the mercy of what I'm calling the data industrial complex, and they don't always have your best interests in mind, as we might, we might observe from recent events with the internet and the gatekeepers of the internet. So, software eats the world. Software eats the banks. Software eats the music industry. Software eats the file storage industry. That's where we're at, and we're kind of late to this game, this conversation. We're kind of late to it because there have been projects in development that you mentioned. But enough backgrounding for me. That was just, I feel like that's what was channeling through at the moment. But I would like to ask you, if we're going to be kind of mutual in this exchange, is like, who do you want to hear this conversation? Like, who is your audience, and what is your intention for us to deliver to them? Why should they stick around and listen to us talk about this? And what should we be hoping to deliver to them to make it worth their while? Because I would say one more thing. I know you have a lot more friends and colleagues in the software development world than I do. And maybe it's those people who you would want to be the first ones to know that, hey, Arun, your friend Arun, I used to build all these projects with, he's doing something cool. He's starting his own project. Here it is on GitHub, etc. And maybe we're doing like the pitch to get them to, join forces. I don't know what your intention is exactly, so I'd like to give it back to you to express your intention, and then we can. I guess I kind of did mine first, so thank you for letting me go first.
So basically, the reason for having this conversation, see. How do I see this particular project is like you might be knowing the philosophy of socialism. That was happened in Soviet Russia, and it's actually went against the capitalistic forces in that particular time. But right now, when we come to our own time, what we are actually seeing corporates are taken up all these forces on the form of data and algorithms, so they can easily manipulate a lot of peoples and make them to addictive to whatever the system they have built across, saying that they are actually making these people's life much more easier, rather just by using the forces to keep this system more stronger, so what happens in IPFS and stuffs like that is like it's decentralization of these kind of data giants in people's hand, like a person who is imagine that the peoples across the India is having one Raspberry Pi and they are hosting this IPFS node or this incentivizing system across India or across the world or something like that. So the data is actually decentralized, So what happens over here is like there is not a single entity which is actually taking hold of all these kind of particular data, and these people who are having these kind of boxes are actually getting incentivized with the coins, like any form of crypto, so they can actually exchange that against anything which has a real value. So if we check into internet, the people who are actually using the kind of cryptocurrencies like a medium of investment or a medium of something like that, but it's actually designed in a purpose of serving to replace the money, so it's a this is my intention behind this particular project, decentralization of the particular internet and decentralization of the economy in much broader way. In a way, you have helped me in beginning with helping me to understand a lot of technologies out there, which is actually using all these kind of technologies and how to secure and how unsecure it is and how secure it is and who and all is benefiting, how many people are actually sacrificing because of this and stuffs like that. So this kind of economy, this kind of decentralized internet with the decentralized economy is actually a liberative movement for this the things which are evolving. And also if we can if my intention is like if I can build a particular product around this, and which is like that could be become it will be giving a sense for me, like building something which is actually useful for people and which will actually help many people out there, and that actually give a much more empowerment to people, those who are around, So these are my intention behind this particular stuff.
Well, very well said, and I appreciate all that. And I agree with you 100%. And it's very important that people take responsibility for their sort of digital sovereignty, their civil rights, human rights as citizens of the internet, and actually study the history of the internet to try to understand that it was built so that it would resist centralization, and that it would be resilient, and it would be self-healing, like a network of life in nature, that it would have many nodes, many interconnection points, and very few single points of failure. And then it's become corrupted, it's become gentrified, and it's definitely we're seeing the horrible effects of that, from government tyranny to corporate tyrannies. There's I'd say if you're listening to this and you haven't already been shocked by some adverse circumstance of being online, finding out that that your data was hacked from your email account, and all they do is say sorry, and maybe you'll get $5 from a class action settlement 10 years later. Maybe all of your personal data, all your photos, maybe they were hacked and leaked, maybe they were sold. So it's getting worse and worse and worse, and I would call it a disease. I would say that the internet is infected with malicious actors, both corporate, nation state, and just and gangs of hackers, and just individual hackers, and then on top of all the malice, there's just negligence around the way people store passwords, the way people, you basically, I guess I would say to people, anybody listening to this, whether you're a developer, a tantric, a yogi, or all the above, as I think we are, I think that it's important to realize that, ask yourself, how many times have I clicked, yes, I have read the terms and conditions and the privacy policy, sign me up and create my account. And you lie, and I lie, every time you click through that interface and you don't read the entirety of those terms, you lie. And you lie to yourself, and you basically waive that is a prompt for you to proactively acknowledge the rights that you were surrendering and waiving by interacting with whatever that service is. And technically, every time you go to a website, whether you click a box agreeing proactively to the terms of that website or not, you are agreeing to abide by the terms of that website. And so I made a joke once. I said, imagine if you, for let's say a day, you could do it for a day, you could do it for a week, a month, a year, but just imagine, for the sake of a meditation, a guided meditation. Okay, so guided meditation, I would say, is imagine every time throughout a day, just try one day, every time throughout one day, when you take an action, meaning you click a button, you swipe a screen, you log into something, you visit a website, you start a new account, every time you take any action using the internet or using a device that connects to the internet, if you were to stop and slowly, mindfully make note of every action that you take that involves either a pre-existing contract that you already signed up to and accepted the terms for, or a new one, or one where by visiting a new website you were tacitly agreeing to understand that you were bound by the terms of use and the privacy policy, etc., of that website. So now, let's say you did that one day, you spent logging just a list of all of the points in that day where you entered into the legal territory of an agreement with a third party to, conduct yourself on their platform, to consume something from their platform, to transact, to interact, to basically send packets of data back and forth across the internet. So now you have, after that day, let's just say it's 100, average person, it's probably, but it's hard to say, who you are and where you are in the world. For me, I would say it's probably between 100 and 1,000 per day. If I were to really log like every second, like right now, I probably have maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, just because my devices are on, and then if I go and browse and search and click and surf and follow and like and whatever else, that's probably another several hundred within an hour or two. So let's just say by the end of my day, if I were to log every contract that I'm operating under, let's just say, for sake of argument, there's 1,000, right? So let's just say we all end up with a list of 1,000 contracts that we interacted with in a day, and then you can ask yourself, well, how many of those details of those terms of service contracts, privacy policies, etc., that I agreed to tacitly, how many of those 1,000 do I have any cognizance of? Do I really have any understanding of? Did I ever read at all? Probably very few. And even if you read all of them, are you really like careful about abiding by them and always aware about what the consequences might be if you are in violation of them and you're at fault and you are liable? And then also what are you trusting them to do? You're trusting them to hold up their end of the bargain, but you kind of assume that might be more than they signed up for, and they're actually waiving the liabilities that you think they might have. So you have less, they don't really have your back the way you thought that they did, because you were just living on wishful thinking, living on a prayer. So the next step I would take in this guided meditation is to visually imagine those 1,000 contracts that you were engaged in electronically, invisibly, that they exist in the fantasy world of law and the sort of the electronic world of ones and zeros, binary data going through the pipes of the internet and the wireless sphere. That all of that material. Now imagine if you actually sat there with that list of 1,000 contracts, digital contracts, and you sat there with a printer and you printed them all out. And then you stacked up every contract that you printed out. How many inches or feet would that pile of contracts stack up to be? And that is your digital life, the legal structure of your digital life. Visualizing and imagining, that's how much risk, that unacknowledged risk, that's how big your blind spot is. That's how mortifying and terrifying it really is to think about the speed at which we surrender our freedoms, our rights, and our privacy to third parties without a clue about what we're doing, because it's fun, because it's a new shiny thing, because it's addictive. And so what the framework to come at what Arun is saying, why it matters if you were privileged enough to live in a so-called free country where they don't just black out the internet when people start protesting, and they don't yet monitor every single financial transaction that you make using your whatever currencies you use, from cryptocurrency to fiat to a central bank digital currency. We're talking about surveillance and the recourse that you might have as a citizen of the internet. You and me and all of us who are happy to use these quote free services, the mantra is, if it's free, you're the product. And so what does that mean? If it's free, you're the product. It means the only way that most of these platforms that we're using to do our daily digital lives that we take for granted and we have very careless and reckless with, if we're not paying for that, then the revenue model for those platforms to exist, unless it's something like Signal app, which is run on donations, or the Tor project, which is run on donations, or just an open source project where people just create free licensed material for people to fork and build on. If it's a business with data centers they got to pay for, and they got to pay their lawyers, because it's their lawyers who are gonna make sure that you don't sue them, and they know their terms of service. They're paying their lawyers. They're paying for their data centers. They're paying lobbyists to manipulate governments for their advantage, and their monopolies. So it's a pretty old playbook that they're operating on, and you're the product because they sell your data to advertisers so that they can give you the delusion of a free product. But as they say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So we're at a point, in my opinion, as like a armchair philosopher of internet, and I've been. It's cool. My mom showed me my first website, and it was an anarchist. It was called like Spunk or something like that. It was an anarchist an anarchist, like one page web 1.0, very primitive HTML website. And I remember her excitement because she is also a tech person. And we all, back in 96, 97, the first web page that would load, or the era of the first web pages, we've come a long way. But I go back to remembering when things were much simpler and much less invasive and far more peer-to-peer. Anybody could post a website, a web page. I mean, back then it wasn't even, you called it a web page. Hey, do you have a home page? Yeah, here's my home page. It's like you scroll down for a mile and there's twinkly GIFs in the background and, funny fonts. And like, it's just a total aesthetic atrocity. There's no functionality. There's no embedded scripts. There's no trackers. There's none of that stuff. Barely even search engines at that time. And, of course, venture funding, Silicon Valley, they seized the opportunity to gentrify that beautiful peer-to-peer, very open, very egalitarian, and far less insidious and hateful and aggressive and poor-mannered behavior, And you could also stay anonymous in a lot of ways. So if you did want to be building a movement, secretly or exchanging information as journalists, it's just, in the words of Michael Basil, my favorite techie one of my top favorite techies, Michael Basil with the Privacy, Security, and OSINT show and inteltechniques.com. He's one of the most advanced private investigators on the planet, and he's worshipped as such. And I love his work, and I learn a lot from him. And he says, when he said, he's like, I don't use a lot of these platforms, the social media stuff anymore. He's like, you know what? The internet's not fun anymore. And that fucking broke my heart. Yeah.
So, yeah, the thing is like, in a way, I also don't use much of the social platforms, and not just the decentralization of the web. That is not just what I am aiming into. I'm also aiming into the decentralization of the corporate power, which is of course money. Money is centralized. When it comes to a centralized institution, it is like it is easy to control or it is easy to manipulate such a masses with the bad infos, which is actually flying through internet or any kind of media with such a power, with the kind of money those kind of institutions are got. So whereas the cryptocurrencies actually decentralizing all these kind of activity. So this is also one of the important dreams of I'm having, and and one more thing is like exchange rates are very high. If we see into internet, there is third-party applications such as PayPal and stuffs like that, which is allowing people to send money across the borders, and whereas the Elon Musk is holding the money for approximately 3 days, and this peoples are actually reducing the value of the money. For instance, if I'm sending or if I'm receiving or $50, already $10 is got cut through this third party application. And if the USD value is 73 rupees on today's value, what I'm receiving is like 72 rupees. So again, there is money is been got deducted. Whereas in cryptocurrencies, the deduction is almost equal. There is actually there is no boundaries of the boundaries are not existing. Like it can be sent across from one wallet to another, and more people are getting used to this kind of technology. And when it is coming to more and more people to use this kind of technology, the borders will disappear, and it is like a small planet where we we all like a single family a world government can be executed, and it can be developed across the borders, and those kind of things is only possible through crypto environment, where the other values like gold and all, there people are actually seeing into less value, and like there is a lot of people that died for gold and stuffs like that. So whereas for instance, in peoples are actually enslaving peoples in Africa, kind of countries like Africa and all, to mine gold and sort of stuffs like that over there, just to extract the gold, that is just the metal from the earth, in order to get a value on the money and get a hold of that. But the cryptos are actually can break these borders and can be used, and I was watching one or two videos of Charles Hoskinson. Here he is actually saying about that. It is like he correctly identified the cryptos is not just the way of the darknet people there. People are buying and selling the stuffs and things like that. It's not just the way. It's not a medium for investment. Also, it's actual currency that could be sent across the borders without the problems of the exchange rate or whatever is prohibiting people from sending this transaction possible across the borders. So this kind of thing, like decentralized internet with a decentralized economy, is what these kind of technologies can actually bring forth, and this kind of platform can actually come up with.
Yes, thank you for elaborating on those topics. Again, I agree 100% with what you're saying, and I'm glad that you brought up my favorite my captain, Charles Hoskinson. He's my favorite man in crypto and technology, and certainly my favorite mathematician alive. And I've spent quite a bit of my life, and it has not been a sacrifice. It's been actually a huge privilege, a huge honor to be a fan of Charles Hoskinson, going back myself to December 2017, and the classic Cardano. Basically, it's the what they call it is the Charles Hoskinson whiteboard video that describes the need for a third generation blockchain technology. And so we're in the middle of that tournament of Gen 3 blockchain projects, and I have positions in cryptocurrency holdings, speculative investment positions in a number of third generation or Gen 3 blockchain technologies, but the one that has won my heart is Cardano, for really what I consider it. I would call it, it's the humanitarian coin, and it's not the only one, but to me, out of the alternatives to it, I feel like Bitcoin has been gentrified, and Ethereum not as bad, but I feel like when I say gentrified, that's really a repulsive phenomenon, and in my life story as an activist, environmental activist, and a human rights activist. I don't want to say social justice because people have kind of trampled that term, but what gentrification is, if that word is new to anyone listening, it's very much, and I'll kind of talk about my when I was in my teens and 20s, at the peak of my protesting and my peak of my conviction and my raging hormones, and as they say, days of war, nights of love kind of thing. Like, it was very romantic and very passionate to be a college age activist with no kids and no job because I was living off of student loans and basically no responsibilities, I could afford to throw myself at the cops on the, riot police front line, the protests, and that's the time to do that. That's the part. The student class is the warrior class. You're either a student warrior fighting for whatever cause you believe in, or you're conscripted, or you join the military and your warrior energy gets consumed by whatever your leader of your nation wants to deploy you to do. Could be for better or worse. So the warrior energy of a population is always in the college-aged people because they have the most freedom, flexibility, passion, dopamine, testosterone. So for me, a lot of the energy was around the time when gentrification was really taking hold in San Francisco Bay Area, and also where I grew up, in the Northwest. There was resistance by the warrior student class against the colonization of poor neighborhoods by what we would call hipster corporate chains, like that. I'm not going to say the names of them, but if you watch Fight Club, you will see that one of the missions of Project Mayhem was to trash a piece of corporate of modern art while simultaneously smashing a corporate chain coffee bar. And that was like the sport for them as like pre-crypto anarchists. They were not like the highest tech anarchists sort of guerrillas, but they were very creative. They were like poetic terrorists, is what some people might say. But basically that urge to protect the working class, the environment, the quality of life of the fabric of a neighborhood from the colonial influence of big corporate invasions, whether it's big box stores or chain coffee shops or SUVs, sport utility vehicles. That was kind of like the menace that was coming in and ruining the fun, ruining the freedom, ruining the culture and the spirit of the local communities. And they had bags of money, real estate speculators, and they would come in and they would take old houses and they would flip them. And I even remember when I was working class at that time, it felt very awkward to me to have to take a job where like I wasn't flipping them because I was poor, but they're hiring the poor people to dig their own fucking graves. And I was one of them. I was paid as a poor person living in a poor area to fix up houses that were then going to sell at a higher value to price out the people living in the neighborhood. And then they can use all kinds of dirty tricks and tactics to basically push people out of their own neighborhoods, and grandparents and people who own their homes, like just getting squeezed out. So that gentrification process is something that my most passionate, fiery warrior energy was used at that time to fight against that. And I won't say I did anything illegal in that movement, but I will say that I did cheerlead some people who did some illegal things, and that's not a big mystery. But I will say that and that's before Occupy Wall Street, but then Occupy Wall Street was also something that I was not as involved with, given different, that was like the next generation of college warrior energy, you could say. And that was 10 years, ish after my cycle of that. So I was like, I was applying my warrior energy in more refined or more sublime ways than just like, okay, I'm going to drop everything and camp on a lawn. That's cool. I would have done it all out 10 years earlier, but then, your life shifts and I did support the movement. But basically the reason I say that is because what's happening with Bitcoin right now, and it has been for a while now, and it's become slowly more and more acceptable to bow down to these forces of gentrification. They are making it so that the peer-to-peer electronic cash casual payments over the internet with negligible transaction fees and a one CPU, one vote, anybody can mine with their laptop ethos of the Satoshi white paper, that's all been hijacked. And now the transaction fees are too high to use. It's impossible to get into the mining game. It has been co-opted. It has been gentrified. And does that mean I don't own any? No. Does that mean I don't believe in the spirit of it and know that it's still the best money and still know that it's crypto anarchist at its heart? I'm still a believer. I'm not bashing Bitcoin itself. Bitcoin is just a tool, but the way that it has been manipulated and financialized, it's, to me, less attractive than something that I believe is ungentrifiable. And that's what I'm going to call ADA and Cardano for the rest of my life, if it continues to be the humanitarian coin of my dreams, which is actually designed for the people in a way that resists the encroachment of the gentrifying colonizers. And so that extends now. That to me, that's my, investment thesis, my spiritual investment thesis in Charles Hoskinson, IOHK, the Cardano Foundation, Emergo, the Rick and Philippe from the Cardano Effect podcast, Big Pay from the Bloom Stake Pool, Peyton. These are the people in Cardano, and all of the people that show up on the IOHK monthly product updates. All of the people that I am aware of there. That's still just, those are to me my heroes. That's my home team. Like, that is the people who I want to succeed the most, and who I can attribute my current wealth to, is the hard work of those people and the vision and the dream that they have. So that is my encouragement, not investment advice. My encouragement to, if you're listening to this, spend time understanding the history of Bitcoin, the history of Ethereum, which I haven't said much about, but I'm also, I love Ethereum. I love Bitcoin. I love Ethereum more. I love Ethereum. I love Cardano more. So I love Cardano the most, and that's reflected in my portfolio, and it's reflected in my my path of development. Like, I did some smart contract development on Ethereum, and it was important for me to have that learning experience. But I do not believe that Ethereum. I believe Ethereum has been hijacked by what we call degenerate gamblers, and it's what decentralized finance is, off the charts, but it's also being seized upon by degenerate gamblers, so they call it DegenFi. And there's nothing stopping really any force of evil and corruption from trying to co-opt and gentrify the Cardano network. But I do believe that by design, the game theoretics of its white paper, its roadmap, the things that I'm looking at, I believe that it has a better chance of, mostly through on-chain governance and through a incentivization model that will keep people cohesive. And that is what I think Charles has the most to teach us about, is governance and sort of what you might call minarchism or direct democracy. You don't solve these problems overnight just because you figure out how to run with scissors and build fast and break things. Is that what the mantra is? Zuckerberg says the mantra is move fast and break things, or build fast. So playing with fire, running with scissors, spending other people's money, exploiting and abusing people, deplatforming people, that's okay? No. Charles has set out to address most of the problems that we're seeing in most of these sectors. And so I say nothing else. I'm not saying buy ADA. I'm saying subscribe to Charles Hoskinson's YouTube channel and go along for the ride as much as you can. That is from the heart my best advice to anybody in crypto right now. And it's cringy. It's cringy. I don't tell people, yeah, Bitcoin, Satoshi, yeah, the people peer to peer, yeah. It's gentrified. It's getting worse. It's unusable. It hurts people. And I am sick of the way that it's been abused. I love Dave Kleeman. I will say I love Dave Kleeman, if that means anything for anybody. But I don't want to rag on that. And again, I still hold it. I still believe in it. Maybe the true Satoshi's vision will come about some way, somehow. But I think there's a lot of douchebags and a lot of fuckery, and I'm very skeptical about it. So this is just a good time to have this conversation because there is another soul that I want to shout out for the purpose of this moment of me speaking from the heart about these technologies. It's Juan Bennett. Juan Bennett, the lead designer, developer at Protocol Labs, and I would say he and his team of like Matrix style hacker warrior. I don't know if they would call themselves crypto anarchists, but they're definitely ethical hackers. They're definitely on the light side of the force. Juan Bennett's. So these are the two videos I think anybody listening to this, and I honestly don't want to talk to anybody ever again who doesn't watch these two videos, and I'll just be blunt about that. Unless you're a sadhu and you're drinking bang and you're singing mantras, to the sun and moon, and you don't have any devices and you don't watch anything on YouTube, then you're excused. But if you watch anything on YouTube and you don't watch these two videos, don't expect me to want to talk to you until you do, because I don't want to live in the future that isn't built by these two fucking geniuses, and that's Charles Hoskinson and Juan Bennett. So the Charles Hoskinson whiteboard video, please watch that. The Juan Bennett hands-on introduction to IPFS video from 2015 at an Ethereum meetup when Ethereum was probably worth, I don't know, dollars or pennies at a time. You get it. You will get it, and you will easily understand like what we're talking about for developing, not a competitive necessarily, maybe an alternative, but I say like the rising tide floats all boats, and then the ecosystem of open source technology, every fork is a net benefit to everyone, because if a fork of an open source project outcompetes and overshadows the original main development path, then that original developer base, they have something to learn from that fork. What do they need to integrate from that? If they fail, they can learn from their mistakes. That's why Litecoin is a great use case. That's why Bitcoin Cash is a great use case. It's all a net benefit, and it's nothing to fight over unless you're trying to rip people off and you're trying to manipulate the market. But if you care about this technology evolving, my and not so humble, opinion is that, I want to help push this stuff forward, and I want to help adapt this to my needs. And that's what, the best developers, they say, we build stuff that we want to have because we think it's cool, and we open source that because we want people to contribute to that, and we want to grow together and share in the network effect. And that means, when everything is open source, everybody gets to bring this potluck of technology, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's completely counter to those forces of evil that are raping and molesting our data and our bank accounts and all of our freedoms, and in the worst cases, facilitating real, actual physical harm on a lot of levels, from the states, the authoritarian regimes. And look at what Alex Gladstein and the Human Rights Foundation. I got to say, if there's the love I have for Bitcoin, it rests squarely on the work of Alex Gladstein and the Human Rights Foundation. That's not the only use case of Bitcoin that's beautiful, but I just want to say, like, my heart does say I love Bitcoin. I love the people behind the projects in Bitcoin that are still fighting for, the original vision for the people to have peer-to-peer electronic cash, and not digital gold. Like, digital gold is for Wall Street to fuck with people using. People need peer-to-peer electronic cash. I'm on that. I'm in that camp, but I'm not in anybody's like religious sect of, what fork of Bitcoin is going to do that. I don't think a fork of Bitcoin is going to do that at this point. I don't think proof of work is going to do that. I think proof of work is an environmental atrocity, and I think proof of stake is a step in the right direction. But getting off the soapbox, Juan Bennett, IPFS, Juan Bennett's hands-on introduction to IPFS. You could watch about half of it before it turns into an actual demo of like command line, interface stuff, which probably will turn most people off unless they really want to learn that or already know that. But the first part of it is like civics for humanity in the information age. And the slideshow that he gives, I'll shut up after this. Right now, I'm in the process of needing to build something that solves my problems and that I think is cool. And that is going to be a network of data resilience where anybody in the world can get incentivized and paid to run and host a TantraPunk node of a TantraPunk network that's incentivized. So if they put together their own, let's say, Raspberry Pi, which is like a micro fully open source micro computing device, the general computing device where you could load an operating system and connect a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse and actually have a pocket-sized, it's like, it's not as sexy as a smartphone, but it's also cheaper, and it's also far more, it's far less limited in terms of like the proprietary licensed hardware and firmware and software that you're succumbing to using an Android or an Apple phone. So if you can sacrifice the convenience and the flashiness of a smartphone and get a little bit more like hacker, Neo, like Matrix style hacker of like this microcomputing device, you can run an IPFS node, you can connect on a peer-to-peer mesh network to access the internet bypassing ISPs, you can use Tor, you can use Tails operating system, which has Tor built in, and you can be I would say as much as possible, a private and anonymous peer-to-peer contributor to resilient financial and file storage networks and actually get paid for it. And there's storage, there's Filecoin, there are other projects that are trying to solve the problem of incentivizing people to serve files from their local machine, operating as a server to the network, or by having a contract with a centralized data center or hosting provider, which is like a step backwards towards centralization. But everything is a matter of degrees. But why I say this now is that I think when I watched Juan Bennett's hands-on introduction to IPFS, I don't know how I can't put into words how much love I have for like the work that he's doing. And having read the IPFS white paper, that is a dream come true, knowing that's being built. And that brings me back to the moment of my mom showing me my first anarchist web page in 1996, connecting to a dial-up and sitting the laptop on the floor, connecting to a phone jack in the wall and saying, "Hey, Ben, look at this. Look, it's a Circle A. That's what you're into, right? And it's a web page, and it's from Czechoslovakia or something, like how cool is that?" And nobody could have come in there and snooped on that. Maybe it wasn't encrypted at the time, but my point is that, in that presentation of Juan Bennett, he shows how we went from decentralized to centralized, and how we need to reclaim that beauty of that decentralized peer-to-peer functionality of the internet, because it's always been there. We just got lazy. So, like get a little fit, get digitally fit, get off your digital ass, and fucking maybe not learn Linux and command line and Haskell and all that stuff. But that's why I worship the hackers. That's why I worship Arun, because he's the one who can make sense of all this stuff at a level that I can't. But I can watch Charles and I can watch Juan tell the story of the internet, tell the story of big data, and tell the story of decentralization, and fall in love with them as people, as storytellers, as magi and shaman and gurus, in their own right. And they're creating free tools that actually can pay you to operate. It's the opposite of an exit scam, the opposite of a Ponzi scheme. You can earn by participating, and that's just super a flipping of the script. But the thing I wanted to, the vision I wanted to leave, in my words with here, is that I just released a book. I want the book to operate as an open source, crowdsourced editing project where there's incentivization, like a bug bounty for people to help me edit that manuscript, and treat it like it's an open source project where people can contribute art, they can contribute videos if they want, they can contribute commentary, they can, ask me to add or, refine or change a section, and it can be a living, organic sort of open source, crowdsourced project, and people can actually get paid not only to participate in the editing process, but also get paid to host the current version of basically what would be considered like a Bitcoin node or a IPFS node, or running the client. Like, this is something that will eventually evolve as like a Tantra Punk, videos, podcasts, books, etc. All my digital content can be put on a Raspberry Pi, and it can be all served as a node on the IPFS network, and then that uptime of the serving of those files to the IPFS network, my wealth through Cardano and other investments, as they mature, will be used to pay people and incentivizing them for their uptime of the network. And therefore, I don't have to be deplatformed, and I go from platform to protocol. And that is the other mantra. But so with Juan Bennett's presentation from 6 years ago, he has the funniest, most elegant, like just totally fell in love with this moment where he's talking about book burning. And I think that was the most poignant and quintessential historical reference he could make to why we need IPFS and why we need decentralized peer-to-peer resilient data storage networks. Is that he had this slide of like 4 or 5 different photographs of book burning parties, religious fervor, fanaticism, political, ideological fanaticism, right? Burning books. And so, his analogy, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, he's like, well, what the internet can do, what file sharing and replication and whatnot can do, is that basically it's similar to like, well, if you own a printing press, then you can constantly be, fighting, and they can burn as many books, they can knock themselves out burning books, but you can always continue to print more with your printing press, and that is basically the war. So like he has a slide where there's like a bunch of fires, like a bunch of cartoon fires and a printing press and a bunch of cartoon books, and then it goes from like, how the books can basically, it shows you how the books can kind of like grow back, and it continue to replace the burnt book. So they can only, they can't keep up with us if we do this right, and that's what this is all about. So fuck you to the book gentrifying book burners, and like. And deep bows to the hacker, folks who are helping us have these digital printing presses that can prevent, the extinction of our work, So that's my soapbox.
So basically the thing is like the decentralization of the internet, also the decentralization of the economy. This is the 2 things which I'm aiming into, and that is something which I'm trying to build into. So yeah, so I think we are clear about this now. So
where do we go from here?
That's all I want to talk.
Yeah. How about I'll ask you, because I know I talked for a while, but I'd like to, if you want to go a little longer, I'd like to have you, balance out. And can I ask you some questions then to give people? So maybe you're listening to this, you got this far, and you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? Well, I said watch those 2 videos. That's the start, right? You watch those 2 videos, and then we can talk. But and then you might change the way you interact with all those contracts that you're in. But I would like to ask you, if you have some more time now, I don't even know that I know this yet. So this is for my benefit as much as for the listener. I would love to have you share your personal narrative of how you became a developer.
How I become a developer. So basically, I wrote some code. Computer started to act on the way which I asked it to do. Exactly, it will do whatever I am telling it to do. Then I started to like what I am writing. Yeah, then I fall. I mean, I somehow I managed to be more okay with the computer rather than that of the people. So that is the reason why I become a developer. Yeah, then I want to do something better with the technology, because I knew that the technology is something which is actually connect people together. And I read a lot of books into this. I spend most of my time into reading about the internet and other stuffs, and spirituality, and yeah, this is the two things which I got interested into. Then economy also, like I need a balance of all those things, and the studying about the philosophies and other stuffs like that. Then I understood all these three things are connecting, because philosophically, I mean, human beings are needed to be free. That is what they are actually seeking in deep down, everybody. So how do it's possible? It's not like it's not just like possible in just into it has to be happen into philosophically, spiritually, ecologically, and all the dimension it has to happen. Then that is how the freedom is actually happening. So yeah, there is nothing much about the why I become a developer. This is because I just like this computer thing, and some at the moment it started to pay me also to write the code. Somebody started to pay me, so yeah, that is one more reason. Now I'm doing some meaningful work right now, like decentralizing the internet, and decentralizing the economy, and it's like a socialist dream which is actually coming true,
A socialist without the government, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So
that is the decentralized government which is possible through internet.
right, yeah, and then you could call it different things: crypto anarchism, direct democracy, digital consensus, network consensus. So now, thank you for sharing that, and I think you a lot of people would relate to that. Certainly, the computers are more cooperative than people. Part of it, I think I could agree with that too. And so I like wild animals, because they're predictable. But people, man, I don't know. I gotta watch out. So, but so this, when you say, when someone doesn't know, a full stack developer, so I would love for you to share what the evolution it has been of the code languages that you've worked in, which ones you like or don't like, what is your what are your tastes for like code languages, and what do you like to do in the development space? I mean, there's different things that you probably had to do for a job. There's probably things that you did as a hobby. And I'm just curious, like, what is your passion beyond just the general experience of computer programming,
So basically, I started out with the PHP. The PHP was my let's understand what is the term full stack actually means. Like it's like a person who can actually write a full system, like a database-driven web 3.0 system. Like there will be, for instance, if we see a website, there will be a MySQL DB, there will be a PHP where we can write the business logic that will actually show the things on front end. So there is 3 levels, and there is some cron jobs which is running on the background, like which is actually like every 10 minutes or one day we have to take the backups and stuff like that. So a little bit of shell script. So then in front end some CSS, HTML and sort of stuffs like that. So 5 to 10 languages all together. Somebody is comfortable to write something which is, then we can call him as a full stack developer. Then to look back into the technologies, evolved the technologies which I started with the PHP, then evolved into Node.js, because the Node.js is like it's just exactly like JavaScript. The JavaScript which we are writing on the front end can be used into back end as well. So the JavaScript which then I have started to use. Then right now I'm into this decentralized stuff. So Solidity and Haskell I'm trying to learn now.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, that was a good overview. And I say, in my experience, like I said before, I'm more of a designer. So I say I've done a lot of really haphazard copying and pasting of code snippets and breaking things. And just, I mean, like if I would have sat down and diligently read the PHP books and the HTML books and the CSS books and everything, I would have saved a lot of time, because I would just end up like, oh, I don't want to learn all of it. I just want to change the color of this one background. Oh, where is it? And then I would have to use the website developer tools to try to identify the class and the style. And just like, if I would have been doing it right and been disciplined, I could have really just focused on learning things correctly. But I just didn't have the mind for it. I don't type fast enough. I'm very like, not really like proficient at it. And I don't know if I will get caught up to that speed. So again, that's why I value people like you. So you did it right, and you've done it right, and you're still doing it right, to where, you have a mastery in that area, and you enjoy it. Like I personally, I'm more of a right brain kind of art, visual, audio, like, I think, I don't want to say creative, because I think that's really insulting to say, oh, the creative department, and then like the dev department. I'm like, no, everybody's creative. Everybody's contributing. It's a symphony. If you're writing code, you're writing poetry, you're writing a symphony, you're writing, beautiful creative works of logic and expressing wherewithal in math and computer science that is beautiful. So I want to give extra love out there to the devs who, don't get enough love and credit, and certainly don't get like, even some of them get very, very well and highly paid, but there's also been like a race to the bottom with globalization. And I'm curious if you could talk about like what it's like to be, in the Indian tech marketplace, where there's been a rapid. I mean, what I would love. There's a film that I think people could watch too. I'm not as rabid about it as the other two videos I mentioned before, but it's called Outsourced, and it's actually the actor who was Billy in Gremlins was the actor. So if you love Gremlins and you wonder what happened to Billy, you can see him in a movie called Outsourced, where he's a corporate. He was basically like me, in the like post.com era, like bubble, but basically like the early tech, basically the digital globalization outsourcing era. And I was right in the middle of that too. So when I saw that film, it was like the story of my life too, pretty much. But he goes to India. Basically, he loses his own job, and they say, we're outsourcing this tech. We're outsourcing a lot of this company's tech to India. And if you want a job, you're going to have to go to India and train somebody to do the job that you just got fired doing, because we can hire people cheaper over there, because now they got, the internet connections, and these people are fucking geniuses, and they're killing it, they're crushing it. So there's been this vacuum of, and so I back to even like whatever, 2006, 7-ish, I was on a team in a tech startup in LA, and I was trying to trying to translate the CEO, what the CEO wanted on the website with the developers in India, and then that movie is all about that, and it's actually a beautiful love story, and it's like I would love for you to see that at some point. I think there is a way to watch it for free online, but I'm curious from your perspective, like I think I don't know your exact age, but I think you probably remember a time where there was at least less infiltration of like westernized or like, and I should say, well, Silicon Valley is probably the right word, but basically, like, can you describe in your life history narrative what the transformation has been like with all of this digital globalization of outsourcing to the Indian developer marketplace? Like, what has that been like for you, just watching that transformation?
How do I put it? Like, so it's see, the thing is, like, right now, like it's imported a lot of ideologies also, like a lot of Western ideologies to India, and it's exported a lot of ideologies from West, and it's taken a lot of ideologies from here to there. For instance, a lot of ideologies which is like karma and birth, rebirth, and those kind of spiritual ideas, and from there it's came out like market cap, venture capitals, and Silicon Valley, all kind of these kind of ideas. So it's in a way, it's like human beings when they are evolving, this is actually like, I feel it's just actually good, like whatever is good in both the culture is actually getting exchanged each other,
That's a good word.
and so that is something like yeah, that is how the human beings has to be evolved. That's what I feel. Like people, if they need a better life, they always need a good sort of income also. And if they want to live rightly, the righteous living actually need a righteous understanding. So if you understand things correctly, then you could actually live correctly. So this is like so in not just the financial level, the existential level also people has to improve in order to strengthen the living which they are actually going through, so this is something which I feel.
Well, I'm really glad you feel that way. It makes me feel better about contracting with you overseas. And I mean, like, because I had to wonder, God, am I just like part of the problem, gentrifying? Like, I'm talking about not gentrifying, and here I am gentrifying India by, fucking even do it. But you absolve me. You absolve me of a little bit of guilt there. But no, I think that's a beautiful perspective, and of course, we all hope that this technology gets more and more green, more and more sustainable, less and less toxic, less and less built on the backs of slaves, and maybe it's like, okay, fine, if we have to have this technology and we have to have a cell phone, can we build them so that we agree, somehow to not just like make a new model every 5 seconds and filling the fucking landfills. You know what I mean? There's just too much waste to not be outraged by, people thinking it's out of sight, out of mind. You just don't have all of this technology without devastating social and environmental impacts. And I'm trained in that stuff. So I'm hoping also the ethics of the spiritual ethics, the ecological ethics from India will also continue to inform the hardware part of this whole industry. I mean, ideas are very sustainable, very infinite, very organic, but the machines that we're creating to implement them are not. So I hope that some next generation of Satoshi helps us have like telepathic networks or some form of like water networks, or something where there's no mining and there's no toxic waste and like zero waste computing. Is that possible? I don't know. Someone hopefully will figure it out before it's too late. But hey, air quality is pretty bad in a lot of India, right? I mean, and in the UK and in the US. So I don't say that to be paternalistic, but like, I guess I could ask you a question. When I was, I guess I should say I've always been, gravitating towards green technology and even using internet technology for environmental work, for environmental projects. And so is it appropriate for you to talk about EduLadder? You want to talk about what that is and what you built there and how, it's like at least empowering people so that they can grow their tools. And I just think of like how you can use technology to serve and to do your dharma. You know what I mean? So what's your tech dharma, Arun?
What's my tech dharma?
And maybe just start with EduLadder.
So what's happened is like there I have built a platform where people can question answer each other. They can ask question and answer. Something like Stack Overflow, stuffs like that. Yeah, that. It's done a very pretty job. It's connected a lot of peoples across the globe. I mean, across India also. In a way, it's made me to understand the educational ideologies which is been actually floating around in India, that it's actually taken from the British ideology of enslaving their colonized countries. So that is what actually happening into this kind of mostly in the education system which is happening in India. And I got chances to study with the various gurus actually. So there was a kind of education system which was actually existing in India, which is like helping people to understand their own Swadharma and making that to and using that to live their life accordingly. So like understanding on self and what we call it as like enlightenment or realization or something like that. So with that knowledge you can actually live the life the way you want to. Like even though there will be a lot of karmas will happen and you may not be attached to the result of the karma. So the karma creates the destiny and karma creates the problem. And if you are attached to the result of the karma, actually what happens, you will be get personated like with your own mind and your own circumstance. The true freedom may not be there. So the real education system is actually focusing on that kind of thing which was actually existing in India, that is based on the Swadharma kind of thing, and that cannot be taught by everybody until at last that person is actually so much of experienced in life and a lot of stuff like that. But the most of the Indian education system is actually is the product of the enslavification of the whatever the Britain has left behind, and that is getting cleared up now because of the technology and stuffs like that. People are understanding there is much better things rather than that of just on this kind of pedagogical approach on education and stuff like that. So yeah, that was my understanding over there.
Right. Yeah, that's very well put. I appreciate that, and I think it is important that we all remember to acknowledge the brutality of the British colonization of India, and it's something that I intend to spend more time studying and appreciating. And I will say, at the very least, Yeah, that's a good. I mean, for me, at the very least, thanks to the geeks, the open source software developers, the tech entrepreneurs, it's possible to fight back with information and fight back with peace and love and tools and have bloodless revolutions. That's the beauty of crypto. That's the beauty of open source. And I would say that that whatever religious and imperialist colonizers intended for, the outcome of India, they certainly did not expect or intend there to be what I call the cult of Mayarati, which we will not discuss now, but I will leave that as a cliffhanger and say that, like, the cult of Mayarati is a beautiful strike back against the forces of sex negativity and repression, sexual repression, and violence against the goddesses and the Shakti of the traditions of Hindu Tantra. And so if it wasn't, we have a lot of people, it is basically, I have to say, when I say the cult of Mayarati, if you know what that means without searching a few of those words, then you can appreciate the fact that it is Mayarati's gift to humanity through my work with her that made it possible for Arun and I to even know each other. So on that note, we could end with the bow down to the goddesses, end with a bit of a prayer. For me, I would say, this, whatever value that this little conversation, created, and I will also apologize for being a little heavy-handed. I'm kind of in like a fired up mood about what's happening on Wall Street, what's happening with the trading apps, and and just everything continues to shine more brilliant light on Cardano, and as we see, COVID, as we see Wall Street bets, as we see a lot of these systems really get revealed for being as hideous as they are, we're really ripe for that revolution. And I want to thank all of the Shaktis that made this happen, for me and Arun to come together, and also shout out to the Shaktis in the tech world, and may there be many more forthcoming to bless us. And that's my words of honoring, and try to make a little bit of a sacred bowing out of this convo where I got a little hot-headed for a minute, but I think for a good reason. That's the Shiva, if there is the three-eyed one, like a wrathful deity energy. So that's the end of my talk, and my thanks to you, Arun, and we will continue to do some development work behind the scenes. And would you like to say goodbye, say any words, for the people listening, like arunsyoga.in? Is that the best place for people to go? You have a podcast, you got, what else do you want to promote and talk about?
At this point, I think we have already spoken almost everything.
Cool. You're feeling good? You want to say, so arunsyoga.in, that's the place people should go to hear your podcast. They can get your astrology services. You do Vedic astrology. You've been doing a series on your podcast. I was blessed to be one of the recipients, and it's changed my life. So I endorse Arun's Ayurvedic astrology, tantric Ayurvedic astrology services. So please avail yourself. There's also a banner link on my sidebar on my webpage for arunsyoga.in, so you can connect there with him. And all right, man. Well, thank you for calling this meeting together. It was very therapeutic for me to share these thoughts, and have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, bye.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to my podcast. You could connect with me in arunsyoga.in, where you could see my contact details, including my phone number, my WhatsApp, and email ID. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes.